Hello and welcome to Botify Sessions. My name is Adalberto Pinto. I will be interviewing AI, engineering, the best people around the world to break down exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And today we've got a special one, which is Miguel Patricio. Miguel, I'll hand over to you. Brief intro on you and yeah.
Hi, so thank you for inviting me. I don't know if I would recognize myself as being one of the best people, but I do hope that I'm a good person at least. So I think that's already worth something. Super nice to see you again. We've already been talking for some years now, and it's always a lot of fun to talk to you. Maybe a bit of intro about myself. Right now, I'm working as a data science manager at RTL, the Dutch company that has
Yeah.
television, and it also has Videoland, which is next to Netflix in the Netherlands in terms of streaming. It's kind of like Netflix, but with Dutch content, more or Dutch speaking content. And it's the second
Nice.
streaming platform. It has a couple more things, so it's quite an adventure. I manage a small data science team of about 8 people that work on quite a big range of topics. And most importantly, I don't like cheese, even though I live in the Netherlands. So it's quite a challenge, but I've managed to survive so far.
No, excellent. Look, Miguel, thank you so much for making the time. I know you got lots going on your plate, so yeah, you making the time to jump on the show is excellent. Let's hit the ground running. I really like your profile. You've had a really impressive journey across academia, startups, and top tier companies. So, if you were to go back to your younger self, would you still pursue a PhD?
Well, before I get into that, I always like to think that we cannot A/B test life.
Hmm.
So I find it very hard to give advice to my past self or to other people in general. But knowing myself, yes, I think at the time I needed to do a PhD because I was very passionate about staying in academia, becoming a professor, and teaching. And I
Yeah.
actually went through that, and that was something I needed to experience. So I think it was totally the right thing to do. In terms of what that did for my career in industry, I don't think it was the best thing that I could have done. I think having done
Okay.
academia earlier would have been better, but still, I think it was the right decision for me at the time, given who I was.
So then I just missed it. You said it would have probably been better to do what else? Not for your career. But what else was probably better?
I think if I had gone, instead of doing a PhD, if I had gone to to industry earlier as a data scientist or as a data analyst or as a data professional in general, I would have acquired skills that would have allowed me to get farther in my career or faster, I assume.
Okay.
But I would always have been thinking my passion is to be teaching and I want to do it. So I would never really be happy.
Absolutely. No, yeah, yeah. And tell me this, when you said that because your first picture was to go and do teaching, I'm guessing you done that and then the journey sort of changed slightly. What made you change the journey? What did you see? Why?
I did work in academia for a very long time, and I was quite happy there teaching and researching. It didn't feel to me at a certain point that I was being able to learn enough. Something I like to have in my life is feeling like I have a big space of opportunities. And what I felt was that I was constraining my space of opportunities. And if I stayed much longer in academia, I would have to stay there for life and I wouldn't be able to experience something else. Whereas if I tried something else, I mean, moving to industry, I could go back to academia in the future, being a richer individual in terms of experiences.
Yeah,
So that's basically the main motive why I wanted to move.
fair. Makes sense. Makes sense. I've got a question. So throughout the years, speaking to hiring managers, sometimes you come across certain hiring managers that really want uh, someone with a PhD, a data scientist with a PhD. Can you think of Because my first question would be, why the PhD? What is the challenge? What is the problem in order to sort of try and find this individual? But can you sort of think of maybe industries or places that perhaps a PhD would be super needed or would help towards sort of projects or yeah, just to for people out there?
That's a very good question. I would say, thinking about myself as a hiring manager, that's not something I value a lot. So I
Yeah.
do value a PhD as being part of someone's growth and career. I don't specifically think someone needs to have a PhD. I think someone with a PhD, they will have acquired quite a bit of experience, and I expect resilience and having gone through having to deal with very ambiguous questions and making it into something concrete, and having survived probably a little bit of psychological warfare, because I think that does happen in a lot of PhDs. But I think you can learn those skills if you don't have a PhD.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
there are some roles that are more research-like, and that can be in machine learning, where you're trying to develop really top edge solutions. So you're not applying solutions that someone else developed, you're developing new solutions. That could be something for which a PhD, I guess, could give you very good skills. Or if you're a researcher using more qualitative methods, for sure, something like a PhD, at least in my opinion, will be very useful to be able to formulate the right questions and figure out of all the potential methods to answer them, what are those methods and how do we make something out of this.
Yeah, no, excellent. That's really good insight. Because, and then you mentioned resilience. You certainly have to be resilient. How long did it take you to do your PhD? And what's the average normally? 4 years, did you say? What's the average?
I don't know what the average is. I know
Yeah, what?
where I did it, I was expected to take 4 years, and I did take 4 years. I think my
Yeah,
supervisor would have liked me to take more, but I just said no. I'm going to finish, or I'm going to fail. It's 4 years. This is
yeah.
the time I have to dedicate to this. I wanted to move on.
Excellent, excellent. You founded a startup early in your career and then transitioned into a role at Booking.com, which one of the world's leading digital platform. How did that transition come about?
So about the startup, I would say it was mostly a side project while I was in academia. And if I had to summarize that in a few words, I think it was a failed experiment. Not a failed experiment in the sense that I learned a lot, a failed experiment in the sense that we weren't really able to commit with that startup. And how I got to Booking, I think it was very different from how someone today would be able to get there. So this was in
Okay.
2017, I believe. I was working in academia for a very long time. I was teaching and researching mostly in biostatistics. And at the time, my experience appeared to people at Booking who hired me. I'm not sure if it would be so easy to get a data scientist role with that experience and with that profile at Booking today. I'm speculating because I haven't tried it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I do imagine, so nowadays you have people who have explicitly studied data science. I, I guess I was an amateur in data science, someone who was doing analytics and machine learning in the context of my work, but I never studied AI. So today, some people study AI, or there's a lot of people with academia, with industry experience. So the pool, the competition is huge and much, much bigger than it was back then. So I think the bar really increased from when I was hired to now. Probably I would not have hired myself if it were today.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Because it leads on to my next question. Because within a year, you were promoted to a data science team lead. So obviously, you were doing something very, very well. What do you think drove that progression so quickly?
I think I did do some things well. And what I think I did well was really caring about the business and trying to find people around me that knew very well how to connect data science work to something actually being done with it.
Yeah.
Because if you just put a model in production, it doesn't really matter unless if someone uses it, right? That's where your work becomes useful. And I didn't really have the skill of getting whatever I did to be used by the business. So I tried to work alongside other people who were very good at connecting with business people and helping me understand what I have to build and helping the business people put it into something that is useful. I really try to help people around me in general, just being a nice guy and caring. So those are the things that I think I did well. On the other side, there was a business need. Booking is quite big, and there was one department that needed to hire a manager. There were not many people who wanted to go into that department. That department had a little bit of a bad reputation, relatively speaking, within booking. So many people told me, don't go there, you're not going to be happy. I actually talked to people there and they seemed pretty cool. And I thought there's very low risk here. If I don't do well, booking is huge. They will find me some other place within the company. And actually it turned out that I love the department and I love the people there. I think there was a combination of me working well with people around me that were better than me at making sure that whatever I did was impactful. And I think that's a great thing for a data scientist is make sure that your work is impactful. If you cannot do it by yourself, get allies to help you. And the other thing was that there was a business need and there was not much competition or any for that role. So I set myself up for success and I was lucky.
Excellent. I've got two questions. One is how you personally, so you're going into this journey, everything is going well, all of a sudden you're going into a team lead position. How do you know you're ready for management having been a single contributor?
I guess when I was in academia, I was already doing a lot that you expect from a manager. But if I think of what I was doing at Booking when I was a data scientist there, a big part of my motivation was actually trying to help those around me, trying to help analysts improve in their skills. Some analysts weren't very good at coding at the time, and I tried to help them either by coding some things for them or help them learn a little bit how to code. I tried to see problems that teams were facing and tried to get rid of those problems for them. So I guess I naturally gravitated, sorry, my English is not working so well, but I naturally started doing things that you would expect a manager would try to do. So it was very organic in a sense.
Okay, no, thank you. My next question is, so you're going into a team. Is there any part of you that thought, right, okay, I'm coming to be the team lead for this team essentially, but I was a single contributor. Will these guys respect me as much because perhaps they know I'm coming from a single contributor role? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I'm trying to think of how did I feel back then. I joined a very welcoming team, but also a very small team. So most of the people on the team left, and we basically had to rehire and get more people. So it wasn't really much of an issue, but there were points in that first job as a manager where I did feel a little bit of an imposter syndrome. I even doing something useful, and this happens even today. People around me, the people on my team know a lot more than I do in many, many things. Right now, I'm 500% comfortable with that. If someone from my team doesn't know a lot more than me about a lot of things, what are they doing? They should know more than me about all of things. And if I hire someone who doesn't, what does it say about me? I'm going to be a total failure. At that time, logically, I did think about that sometimes, like, am I the right person for this job? Shouldn't I know much more than other people? But I guess rationally, I knew that that didn't need to be the case. And I tried to tell myself, okay, so think about what you can do, what you should do, and what your goals should be. Focus on that. So there was a little bit of a psychological element, but rationally, I just thought, are my goals, let's try to achieve those goals. And in the end, everyone was very nice. I think it's much more uncomfortable if you have someone who indeed doesn't respect you. never really had that, I believe. Or if I had, probably I just didn't pay attention because I was too focused on what I wanted to achieve.
Yeah, yeah, no, excellent. No, thank you. After 4 years at Booking.com, you made a decision to leave and join an edtech, a company as a head of data science, to build a team essentially from 0 to 10 people, which is hard. That's a big shift from an coming from Booking.com to go to pretty much a startup built from scratch. Like, yeah, how did that? What was the impact? What was the lessons that you pretty much took from that transition?
Before I answer that question, I think there's a pattern here, which is I left academia because I didn't want to be stuck in having that role forever. When I left Booking, which was an awesome experience, awesome company, I'm very grateful to Booking to this day, and I'm still very much a client of Booking. I use them very often. Sorry, but I'm very, very grateful, so I need to mention that.
Yeah.
When I left Booking, it had been 4 years there, and I also thought I don't want to be someone who can only do things the Booking way. So I want to experience other cultures.
Okay.
And indeed, I did join a startup, and interestingly, I think the main reason why I was hired is because they had talked to someone from Booking who was not so interested in the role, and that person said, "Talk to Miguel. He could be a good fit." I think the value of a network is quite relevant there.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
experience of working there was fantastic until the company went bankrupt, but it was really great for a number of reasons. First of all, I had a manager who's very inspirational, someone who worked very hard but had a vision of what we could build and gave me and my team and the people around us a lot of autonomy. I think he had
Yeah.
huge expectations, but he also gave a lot of autonomy. And then it was quite nice to be able to hire people, and I do like the let's build with what we have whilst we try to aim for something much bigger at the same time.
Yeah.
That type of challenge, it gets me going. I think I was lucky to hire really good people. So it was just a fantastic experience, and I actually made friends for life there. Sadly, the company went bankrupt, but those
Yeah.
things happen.
Two different worlds, right? You look at Booking.com, big corporate company. You've got loads of different titles, loads of structure. Things perhaps might get done a little bit slow because of it's a big company. Naturally, it happens, and then you've got a startup where the structure is 1 minute something might change, and then tomorrow you're working on something else. Yeah, how did when you first got in there? How did that feel?
It didn't feel so different from Booking, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I don't know exactly what Booking feels like, but at the time when I was at Booking, I think Booking was a little bit like a startup. Also, Booking is very big. So it has different departments on different stages of maturity, and some of them, at the time at least, felt very much like a startup, and others felt a lot more organized. So I think it did feel like some places where I was at Booking, but maybe with a little bit bigger responsibility because I was responsible for all of analytics and data science for the entire company. Whereas at Booking, I was leading teams in specific departments for the entire company. So there was a little bit of an increase in responsibility, and also the stakes were high, so high that the company didn't survive.
Okay. Yeah.
I found it fun. I found this fighting for your life kind of logic. It got my
Yeah.
energy going.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, sorry, if
Absolutely.
you don't mind me saying something else. The challenge of doing that whilst trying to provide a very nice environment for your team and trying to create a nice culture where people feel happy and feel like they can deliver. I think that's a really nice challenge. I think I was able to do this, but others will evaluate better than me. But the challenge of trying to do this is really cool.
Yeah. No. Sounds excellent. I can almost now I want to work there. I can almost envisage how fun it was already, and I wasn't even there. Yeah. Fair enough. In 2022, you joined DeepL as a head of data science, another respected company in the AI space. What's the formula to join all these top tier companies?
I don't have a formula. I have I guess, one value, which is try to be myself during interview processes and try to mention both my strengths and my weaknesses, and be very happy if I'm not hired because I'm not the right fit. That makes me extremely happy. So try to make the decision alongside the hiring manager and the recruiters. Try to make the decision alongside the company so that we can reach a good decision as soon as possible. And that allows me to interview the company whilst they're interviewing me. But I guess I don't really have a formula. My experience is that it's has been easier for me to get happy, successful interviews with more reputable or bigger companies than with others. I cannot really explain it so well. I think that depends on what you're looking for. I can speak for myself. Something I'm really looking for is to be happy and to be useful. As long as I'm happy and useful, it's a little bit hard to look for other roles, but I still push myself to do it every now and then because I think it's healthy to evaluate myself against the market and see what the market needs.
Yeah.
For anyone else, if they're looking to move, I think it's a little bit of a tough market these days, I believe. My only advice is, well, I don't know if this is advice that works for everyone, but also people can decide for themselves. I know
Yeah.
what I like to do. I like to be quite deliberate. I like to look at, well, depends on how you're looking, but let's say if you're doing the typical looking on LinkedIn, looking at profiles, then I like to be quite deliberate and trying to understand clearly, trying to read a profile, trying to read between the lines, and trying to articulate for myself what I like about it, what I don't, and then trying to articulate what could I add to this role versus where, if I were the hiring manager, where would be the red flags for my profile,
Yeah.
so that I can already put myself in the shoes of the hiring manager. And by doing this exercise, I'm already trying to understand, would I fit in, would they want me, and would I want them? Of course, there's another hiring mode, which is more through your network. I think having a good network, making sure that they know what you're looking for and being able to articulate what you're looking for and what you can offer to your network makes it easy. What I think is hard is if you're looking for a job but you cannot articulate clearly what you want and what you can bring. Then
Yeah.
you're searching for something, but no one really can help you so much.
Yeah, yeah. No, great. Obviously, as you get more senior, especially when you start leading heads, directors, team leads, I mean, you naturally become a lot less hands-on. How do you stay up to date with the new trends and technologies in AI, especially when it's moving so quick nowadays?
I struggle, as I imagine many people do. I often try to learn through others, but the people from my team, they are individual contributors. I try to apply what they do and try to learn from them. Recently, I actually did an experiment that I want to replicate, which is I asked someone from my team who is hands-on individual contributor, can I join you for a project? It was a small project, but then we were working alongside and it was lots of fun for me. I think it was also fun for her and a great learning experience. And basically what I asked is, can you guide me a little bit on how to set things up? I think setting things up with technology is a little bit the hardest thing if you're not hands-on. And then if you need to do a bit of coding or vibe coding, then it should be easy if you've done it in the past. I've asked her to just guide me and mentor. So she basically delegated that work to me. Even though I'm the manager, I asked her, can you delegate to me and guide me? I might want to replicate that, but there's also other elements in my context. One is my manager is magically good at keeping up with things and asking people, oh, have you seen this? So I get a lot from his questions. He just seems to keep everything on a radar, and then I just go and read a little bit about it. Also, my team has a little bit of an enabling role where we give trainings on AI and on agents. So being part of those trainings, participating, giving some of those trainings helps me quite a lot.
I love the level of humility, especially as a leader. I can relate as well in terms of I've played football for so long. Obviously now I still play as a semi-professional just for fun. But when you, and I've had several managers, but when you have a manager that is so humble, some people see perhaps maybe humility or humble as a weakness, but it's not, especially when you're in a leading position. We are looking to go through brick walls for this individual because they know their stuff, but at the same time they're so humble, and yeah, that's an excellent trait to have 100%. Yeah, that's a big gem, that one. What has been your biggest mistake as a leader, would you say?
There's a lot. I think, especially if you take on a leadership position, you have to do quite a lot without knowing so much. So sometimes there's a lot of lack of clarity, there's a lack of strategy, and you still have to make a decision, or you still have to push in a certain direction. And so making mistakes is part of the job. I would say the biggest mistake that I've made probably was overstaying or staying too long in a company where I don't think I was adding enough and I don't think I was a good fit.
Okay, very
I mean, I
interesting.
didn't really need to. I was just really trying so hard to be useful and do something. It didn't really work out so well.
Yeah. Do you think that with the experience you've had so far now, it's a lot easier to determine when you're sort of overstaying your welcome? When you think like, look, you know what? I think I'm not being impactful anymore. I think it's time to go. Do you think like with the experience, the years now, you sort of have that?
I think I do because I think I've experienced both, in my opinion, being extremely useful and doing a lot,
Yeah.
and being enabled versus the other side, which is being enabled to change the world around me, which I think is when you're failing mostly as a manager, if you're not able to make the world, make your company change to a much better direction. I would say I'm more impatient now. So if I were to see signs that I'm not being influential in a good sense, I don't think I have the patience. Well, I do have the patience to try to be influential, but I think if that happens, I will very quickly experiment and escalate how much I can go to try to be influential, even to the point of being able to break things. I mean, you can
Yeah.
try to be influential in several ways. I mean, you can even go straight to the CEO and cry in front of the CEO. I don't advise this, but that would be something that could definitely break your stay at a company. I would say if I'm not being influential, I think I will quickly take the steps almost all the way to crying in front of the CEO. Definitely not that.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, it's just not working. There's no point.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. If you could restart your career, what would you do differently?
Again, you cannot really A/B test life. So knowing what I knew back then, I would have probably have done the same. If I were to design, based on what I know now, if I were to design a different career, I would say probably I would still have done a PhD because I needed that experience of teaching and I really loved it. But probably it would have been more in computer science versus what I did, which was fracture mechanics. So if you have a little crack somewhere, how is it going to grow? Which is
Yeah.
very interesting, but too far away from anything that I do now.
Fair. Fair. No, makes sense. Last one for you. In your opinion, you've seen a lot of engineers. What truly separates the top 1% engineer from everyone else?
So before I get into that, I do think you can be part of the top 1% in one company and you will not be in another company. So context is very important. And I also think it takes a village to do things. So often you have people who are seen as being awesome at their craft and they are enabled by others who are not seen as the heroes, but they are
Yeah.
actually doing things that enable someone else to shine and be the hero. So I think we need to look at the whole ecosystem quite a lot. For me, what I really value, sorry, even before I get there, I think there's multiple ways to shine. So different peoples have different strengths, and I don't think there is one ingredient to be successful, one recipe to be successful. I think different people have to be themselves and have to find a place that works for them. What I think really helps someone standing out is thinking about the so what. Especially as an engineer, you build something cool. You could build the best system in the world. So what? What matters is what will happen with that system. How does that help the company? And if you do something that helps the company, and then you can think about it from an ROI perspective, how much effort did you put into it versus how much it helped the company? If you're able to think about impact, I think that's the most relevant skill that you can have.
Okay, so someone just super technical is probably not the ideal person. So are you saying someone perhaps that has got a business view as well and can make real impact? Can, I don't know, real crappy example, look at a website and do some testing and think, right, okay, if I change these tools here, we'll be able to get to the ROI, be able to make more impact. So someone that almost has got a business and technical mind as well.
That's for sure who I would hire, so that would work in the context where I am. So for a second, tell my team doesn't have a product manager. So those skills are super crucial. I could also think that in the context of a company that is much more top down, much more organized, much more ticket based, you could have someone who is technically so good that they can work at a huge speed, or they can look at the system, the whole engineering system that the company built, and identify how to improve it. In that context, someone who has those technical skills could still be that hero, if we don't like using the word hero, but could still be in the top 1%. However, they still need to take impact into account, right? They still need to be able to think, what is the one thing that I can do that is really going to make a change for the company? And I actually forgot something else, which is, I think something that makes a difference is people who question the status quo and are able to do things that others don't believe possible, or that others have self-limit themselves. I think that's a really nice way also to think about the 1%.
Excellent. Look, thank you so much. This has been great. Really, you've dropped some big gems on here, and learning even more. No, look, Miguel, thank you so much for your time and jumping on the show. I know you've got things going on, so I won't rob any more of your time. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, and best of luck. And I'm looking forward to see the next interviews that you do.
100%. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you.
Stop now.